Okay, broadcast is live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MCVPOD 1718 consultancy space. This will be partly a consultancy space at the end for you to ask any more questions that you have. And the beginning of it, I'll just be going through kind of the current reality of ISAC-US, what we've been doing, OD model, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm Lydia, by the way. Nice to meet you all, whom I haven't met yet. And I'm going to go ahead and screen share. Feel free to type any questions you have on the sidebar at any point, and then at the end I'll get to them, and then we can always just chat at the end. Sound good? Yeah, I can only see Caden, so I'm going to stick with that thumbs up. So hello, yes, welcome. Again, as I said before, this is the consultancy space. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. Again, this space is meant to replace one-on-one consultancies because there are so many people interested in OD or needing an overview of what OD is like in the US. So if you still have questions after the space, please reach out to me via WhatsApp. Please do not Facebook message me. I really hate Facebook Messenger. Saturday, excuse me, I will be generally unavailable, but WhatsApp me and I'll get back to you as soon as I am able to. So that was just a general disclaimer. Why is the slide here again? There we go. So this is ISAC-US at a quick glance. We have 40 entities, 28 LCs, local committees, 5 full members, 5 general members, 12 official expansions. We technically have 13 right now. However, I am closing the OE, the official expansion Philadelphia, within this week or next week. So you will not need to include them in any of your analyses of ISAC-US. And the OE Indiana State was opened. Indiana State is different from the LC called Indiana. Indiana State is an official expansion. Indiana is a local committee. We have 7 regions in ISAC-US: West Coast, Rocky Mountain High, Texas, Rowdies West, Rowdies East, Southern Comfort, and Northeast Beast. I would suggest getting a little familiar with a map of the United States. We have a map of our LCs. If you go to isacus.org/membership, there is a map of where almost all of our local committees are on there. I'll probably add a picture to this later. Seeing the membership models of ISAC-US, I would advise you to go to the, which has technically the old membership model in it now, and B, the steering team outputs of summer and winter. They both have some things in there. Mainly summer has the membership model changes in there. So you can see all of those. So that is ISAC-US at a very, very quick glance. Moving on. So here is what I think a lot of people have been waiting for. Here's an explanation of what the OD model is for ISAC-US. Our OD model is a little different than a lot of other entities because we start with tier 1. Tier 1 is the lowest tier. Tier 5 is the highest tier, with the thinking that once LCs surpass tier 5, we can simply add a tier 6 instead of having to renumber and rename all of our tiers. So this OD model is meant to last for a while, essentially. So you can see all the tiers are fairly different. These tiers were formed by both myself and the MC responsible for the program, with the thinking that, for example, an LC in tier 1 for OGV, whether they do 2 exchanges or 18 exchanges, they will have to use generally the same strategies to achieve that. And same with every other function. This was because we've had, I wouldn't call it a problem, it was just what was encouraged in ISAC-US before, is, for example, LCs that were in tier 1 but were not classified as tier 1 were encouraged to do things like university relations when they have not even done 20 exchanges. When we know now, like with our growth paths and with things like that, that's not necessarily the best way to jump tier to do things like that, especially when you're in such a low tier as this. I'll be briefly going over the growth paths in a bit, but essentially that's what these tiers are for, both for the MC, so we can customize our strategies and the way we coach LCs, the way we treat LCs, the way we give support to them based on the tier they're in, and for the LC to give them an ambition of a clear goal of LCs for in tier 1, for example, now can clearly say, I want to get to tier 2. Here are the strategies we're going to use to get there. Let's get to 21, or let's get to 21 plus within 6 months. So it's supposed to give kind of a goal for the LCs to reach for, and also a way for the MC to classify LCs to give them more support. So those are the tiers. The clusters are a little different. Again, they go cluster 1 is the lowest, 2, 3, 4. Most of our LCs are in cluster 1 currently. So what we have implemented this year is a very strong focus program for all LCs. Every single LC has a focus program of their choosing. After we implemented the OD model and we explained everything to all the LCs and talked about how focusing is the way to make your LC really, really great instead of just kind of average or good. A lot of LCs cut programs. A lot of LCs are only running OGV, for example, or only OGV and OGT. A lot of LCs cut OGT or IGT, for example. Only 7 pilot LCs currently run IGV. So OGV is the program that no matter what focus program an LC is, they must run OGV. OGV is the national focus program. Every LC must run OGV. Have a different focus other than OGV. For example, we have a lot of LCs in bigger cities that are IGT focused, but they also additionally must run OGV. So that's kind of how the cluster model was formed. So for example, to reach cluster 2, you must have your OGV in tier 2 and your focus program in tier 2. If your focus program is OGV, then you just must, it's just considered your focus program. So for example, for cluster 3, if your focus program is OGV, OGV must be in at least tier 3 versus like tier 2. For example, this is to encourage LCs to grow in a focused way. If you have any questions while I'm talking, please do feel free to write your questions in the chat or keep them at the end. But that's just a very, very general overview of what the OD model is for ISAC-US. Here are all the bit.lys for all of the growth paths. I love bit.lys. We have a lot of bit.lys here in ISAC-US because I make a lot. So here are all the bit.lys. I very much encourage you to take a look at these. These bit.lys will have not only the tiers and the strategies needed for every LC to use in those tiers, but they also have the recommended organizational structures. For example, we've had a problem. We had the marketing function in ISAC-US before MC Flywheel, and there were more members in marketing than in OGV. That's just a very, very general example, which applied to most of our LC realities. So now we have officially cut marketing as a function altogether. There is no local committee that has marketing as a function, I believe. There was 1 or 2 that had them for this year, but then we talked to them and they said, okay, we won't do marketing. There are very, very few LCs as well that do ER, PR, UR, things like that, because no LC is really in the position to have an EB role like that, because there are very few LCs in cluster 2, let alone there's no LC in cluster 3 at the moment. So these are the growth paths. They detail the organizational structures, as I mentioned, to really help LCs in terms of their talent allocation and where they should put people, where more people should be. It's been very reinforced that your focus program, whatever it may be, should have the majority of your time, resources, money, effort. And if OGV is not your focus program, then OGV should get a significant amount of support too, as it is the program that will ensure your LC is sustainable, has leadership pipeline, et cetera, as OGV is for most other entities in the world. So these are the growth paths. I highly encourage you to look at them and understand them. If you have questions about them, like for specific products, I would highly encourage you to ask the product heads themselves. And if you have questions, I can do my best to ask. If the question I feel is best addressed to a product head, I will refer you to them, but you can always ask me about any of these things. These growth paths were formed by both myself, the product heads, working with them individually, with input from our MCVPTM, and then additionally, we got input from our summer steering team at the beginning of our term. So that's how these were formed. So here are all of the LCs and their focus programs. I know this is one of the questions, so I thought it would be, probably a good resource to give you all, as you probably need to know these things. Yeah, you see these LCs with asterisks on them. These denote the official expansions of ISAC-US. So all of these are the current focus programs of these LCs. Use this as you will. I just know a lot of people were asking for them, so here it is. Yay! We're gonna click. Here are the total realizations from January 1st to November 30th, 2016. It was November 30th because that was when I had last updated it. I will likely be updating this to reflect the full year of 2016, either tonight or tomorrow. You can also look at it on Expa if you so please, but this is generally, if you see these OGX and ICX gaps, this reflects our previous membership model, where LCs are either city-based or university-based. City-based meaning they must achieve 4 IGT or ICX within a year. university-based, meaning they must achieve 30 OGX within a year. So as you can see, like 29, they had a gap of 1, but they had 5 ICX realizations, et cetera, et cetera. So again, if you have questions about the membership model, I encourage you to look at the summer steering team output and the compendium. So this is mostly just for your reference. I'm not really going to talk about this much other than you can see like IGB. The dashes mean people don't run the program because we only have, as I said, 7 currently, but 6 this past semester that ran IGB as a pilot program. So moving on, it has every single LC in here. Yay, resources for you, excellent. And now I'm going to talk fairly briefly about our expansion strategy. So what has happened with expansion strategy in the past is that before last year, Alex was actually my predecessor in terms of being in charge of expansions and the LCD team and everything. So what happened was that before Alex, there really was no defined expansion strategy. She was the first to have an NSD member specifically for expansions, and I have taken her lessons that she learned and ran with them. My term, I shut down all other programs in expansions besides OGB. So all expansions only run OGB now. They do not run OGT. They do not run IGT, with the exception of our expansion USC because they were opened as an IGT entity. So I kind of had no choice in the matter. We now have, I learned my OD-ness like education from Columbia, and Columbia has a very, very cool way that they start expansions and strategies like that. So I recruited my NST expansions manager from Columbia, who is an amazing guy. His name is David Lesmes. You can see him right here. He was an expansions LCP in Columbia who, in his first LCP term, in their first term as an entity, did over 100 exchanges. So, I figured, well, I should probably get him to help us. So what I'm having him do is essentially take everything from the Colombian expansion strategy and translate it and make it into something we can use here in our reality. Excuse me. I'm talking so much. Okay, I'm powering through. So we have an expansions growth path and an expansions OD model, thanks to David. We have an expansion support team now. Last semester, it was just David coaching all 12 of our expansions. This semester, I've been able to recruit an extensive expansion support team with someone specifically for OGB, TM, and finance, as well as an LCP coach for all expansions. So it's really awesome. I'm very, very excited for it. The goal for every expansion is that they do 30 plus OGB by Summer National Conference, which is one of our 2 national conferences that takes place in July and August. This is legislated. If these 12 expansions do not hit the 30 OGB by this time period, they will be automatically disbanded. Some of these expansions have been around since 2013, so they really know that this is it. And I would very much encourage my successor to follow through with the disbandment. Because another note about how expansions kind of work in ISIC US is that per compendium, myself as the MC responsible for expansions, I have basically complete top-down control over expansions and what they do. I can have the power to say, expansion Lemon, you are disbanded, you must cease all activity immediately, and I can disband them just like that, just because I make the decision to disband them. The only thing I have to do is notify the National Plenary within 2 weeks of the said disbandment. So in using that power, Philadelphia is an expansion that is being closed due to high lack of activity and communication. And Indiana State was just opened at this past Winter National Conference. So we still have 12 total expansions. I have only opened 2 expansions in my term, being Indiana State and St. Edward's University, which is in Austin, Texas. The reason being, I was not planning on opening any expansion actually whatsoever. Moving on to expansion GCPs. Because what happens is I get a lot of emails every month about people wanting to open a chapter, whether they're university officials, professors, students who are just interested in opening a chapter. But I have learned very, very much that I have to say no to these people. One, some of them spell ISIC wrong in their emails to me, so it's like, no, you cannot open an expansion, go away. What we've learned from all of the expansions in the past is that unless the expansion is started by someone who has any sort of ISIC experience, whether it be an exchange experience or coming from another entity in another country, they don't know what's happening. And it takes way too much money, time, resources to try and educate them and keep them and like get them up to speed with what's happening. So the reason that St. Edward's University and Indiana State University were opened as official expansions was because St. Edward's University was kind of like one of our big LCs in Austin. And they had been working at this university for like 3 years, actually. And the LCP of Austin called me during our initial planning at the beginning of our term and said, hey, look, they're basically like they have like this guy that's been it was funny, actually, the LCP had actually been to more national conferences than I had been. So it was either open them as an official expansion and give them the support they need, or just let them kind of continue working under ISIC in Austin. So I decided to open them as an official expansion, and they have been doing pretty well so far. They have not taken off quite as much as we hoped, but I think. And Indiana State was opened as a GCP of ISIC US is often that we have a lot of internationals come from other ISIC entities. The current LCP of Indiana State was a former LCVP IGV of Casablanca in ISIC in Morocco. So I was like, yes, please, you could definitely open expansion. Thank you. Teach us your ways. So she is there now, just getting started. She was, again, just opened, so they have no results as of yet because they were literally opened 12 days ago, I guess, at this point. And she just got her expo today. So that is a very, very brief look into what expansion strategy has been. Again, we have 12. Feel free to reach out to the LCPs about the expansion strategy, David as well. However, I would request that you not take too much of their time because as much as I love and respect all of you OD applicants, I would much prefer for these LCPs to do operations and get more approvals, as I'm sure we all would love. So moving on. This is just a very, very brief overview of some initiatives, results, and what the role entails as OD. So some of our initiatives as OD here is we do a weekly SONA for all LCs. I have included the link to SONA in one of the last slides as a resources tab. Please don't fill it out. That's just kind of weird if you fill out a SONA thing. You can, but it's there for you to look at so you can understand what we're asking for LCs every week. Before it was weekly, it was quarterly. Where we moved it to weekly to try and reflect kind of the 4DX cadence of accountability. It's very difficult to keep someone accountable if they're not doing it weekly. We found out we are not utilizing SONA to the best of its potential at the moment, simply because I did not have the capacity to do so as one person in charge of 40 entities and with a fairly small NST last semester. But now this semester with my LCD team, I'm very, very much planning on, hey Santi, very much planning on having them evaluate and look at the SONAs weekly for the entities that they coach. Moving on from weekly SONA, I also have a revamped LCD team. Alex, again, the MCP and my predecessor, she had an LCD team as well. I was on it. However, it was regionally focused. So like, for example, I was the coach of LCs in West Coast and Rocky Mountain High, of which these LCs have drastically different realities. So it was very, very difficult for me to coach them. So now we've learned lessons from that, and the LCD team is now focused program and reality based. So I've tried to allocate LCs based on the LCD coach's background. For example, Ian, that's here, he is on my LCD team. He has a very big background in IGT, so I've allocated a lot of the IGT focused entities to him because he's also from a very strong OGV entity, so he's able to support both of those. So that is the LCD team. He sets for the win. Organizational culture. So this is something that wasn't exactly an initiative, more so than a necessity, I would think, because what happens what has happened in ISIC US in the past is that people have been very, very reluctant to focus on numbers, and people were very, very interested in member development. You know, they would prefer a few high quality exchanges to like 100 like exchanges, because there was this like battle between like member development, high quality exchanges, a large number of exchanges, things like that. So all of these things like very, very much like clashed. And what we've tried to really, really emphasize this year is that these things should not clash. And in fact, they are all connected and drive each other forward. Excuse me. One thing, I did not attend IC, but my team that attended IC talked a lot about how they emphasized our members are not our customers, of which in the past in ISIC US, members very, very much have been treated as the customer, more so than our actual customers, which are the EPs that go on exchange. So we very much, I think, not entirely changed that mindset, but it's definitely much different than it was before. Excuse me. And then we have Slack. Slack is something I have been trying to do for a while now. It's moving very, very slowly. Slack, as far as a different Slack space for every single program, every single LC. LCPs have a Slack space. This is a GCP we took from ISIC in Germany. That's been just fairly slow on the implementation, because I'm going to jump down to the email audit actually, because what we found out, these are all connected. What we found out from our LC visits was that a lot of LCs, one, do not have access to their ISIC emails, because here at ISIC US we don't use ISIC.net emails. We have a special like isicus.org emails. So we have, for example, like New York City-president@isicus.org. And like each of their EB members have an isicus.org email. So VP OGB New York City at isicus.org. What we found is an actually quite alarming number of LCs did not have access to the emails. We're not using the emails. And in fact, the emails were very, very out of brandings. For example, we had a lot of emails that were VP OGCDP-San Jose at isicus.org. So we had to, and we are still in the process of really, really cleaning those up and making sure that every VP and every LCP is using those emails, checking those emails. And these are the ones that we will be adding to Slack within probably next week. Slack is intended for network communication, things like that, et cetera. So going to LC visits. LC visits was another initiative we began. And again, these are not necessarily my, like specifically like Lydia Edwards's initiatives. These are more MC Flywheel's decisions to move forward with initiatives that relate to OD. I just wanted to make that clear. We visited 36 out of our 40 entities within the first 3-4 months of our term. Wait, July, August, September. 4 months. And we did so around our regional conferences, which occur in every region in the month of October. And so basically, I kind of killed my MC team and I sent them on LC visits in between every single conference they went to. So for example, my schedule, or I'll give the example of the schedule of my VP OGB, Rosie. She went to an LC visit for a few days and then a conference, and then 2 LC visits that week and then a conference the next weekend. And then after that conference, she went to 2 more LC visits or 3 more LC visits and then to another conference that same weekend. And then after that conference, a few more LC visits. I think she had 6 or 7 LC visits in total with conferences on the weekend. So it was extraordinarily exhausting, eye-opening and worth it. We took a lot of output from those LC visits, from like actually MC members being on the ground in the grand majority of our LCs, and used those to shape our strategies, really understand the network more, and see like what little bottlenecks, for example, like emails, what little bottlenecks we would never even like think would be happening, were happening. I can talk more about the LC visits if you have specific questions, but I will move on for now. Another initiative we have is a scoreboard. Again, a visual scoreboard is an aspect of 4DX. It's bit.ly/ISIC US scoreboard, all lowercase. Again, that's a bit.ly, another bit.ly, and the resources page of one of the last slides in this presentation. Dated weekly/monthly by most MCVPs or their NSTs. It has every single local committee on there. We're working more on trying to make it more graphically appealing, because it's like, as a scoreboard is supposed to do, it's supposed to tell you if you're winning or not. And right now it just kind of says numbers and things. So we've been trying to figure out ways to make it more graphically appealing and interesting to LC members as they look at it, but that's still a work in progress. So results of some of the things that we've been doing. We have seen a lot of growth in OGV, which is awesome, because again, it's our national focus program. LC's growth in winter peak. We grew from, I think, 40 total approvals from last winter peak to over 90 in OGV in this winter peak, which was really, really awesome to see. A lot of LCs that had not had any activity in winter peak beforehand. We're suddenly having a lot. So that was very exciting to see. Not quite as much as we were hoping, but still far more than before. Let's see. There was a decrease in IGT and OGT. Yes, we did have a lot of LCs close their IGT functions. However, these LCs that closed IGT were the ones that were doing less than 3 IGT in a year, or less than 2 IGT in a year. Have an impact on our IGT numbers. However, by far the biggest impact on our IGT numbers was that we were not focused on national sales. Most of the IGT, the last MC was due to national sales, which was fine and good. Like they did sales. Our LCs do not have very much of a sales culture, which can be seen in our stagnant sales in IGV as well, despite extreme product development and like thing and making it more focused and training and everything like that. So we're hoping now with the new class of VPs, and 2, the extensive training and product development that's happened, IGT and IGB will very much increase. There was a decrease in OGT as well. A big contributor of this was due to our cut in supply. Last semester, or the MC term before, we sent a lot of people to Shape Columbia, and Shape Columbia did not have as many opportunities as usual for this semester. So that really impacted our numbers as well. Another result is LCs are really on board with OD. It was implemented and received very, very well, actually, which I think is a credit more to the LCPs and ISAQS than it is to us as MC Flywheel personally, because what I was told anyways, after we had presented everything at our first national conference, was that a lot of people just came up to me and said, this makes so much sense. We just never had someone explain it like this to us before. So honestly, really what we did with OD is we organized everything everyone already knew and just explained it more and deeply and said, yes, cutting programs is a good thing. Because before, what had happened is that if you didn't run, it was like, well, what are you doing as an LC? Like, how dare you not run all 3 programs? So the message we're really, really driving this year is focus, 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 which is, as we can tell so far, working pretty well. And this is just kind of an overview of the role, because I know some people were into this. Hi, Kip, weirdo. I'm muting you. You're in the office next door. Hi, Amanda. Okay, so the role as far as interacting with MCP, LCPs in the plenary. Audrey and I do work very, very closely together. I don't know if I would go as far to say co-manage the LCP class. She is, as MCP, their direct team leader, as we believe the MCP should be. However, I very closely help her with all LCP tracks for conferences, steering team, agendas, things like that, and very much help her manage the LCP class as a whole. For example, my LCD team this semester will be managing the education track for LCPs and things like that. Like, that is not the role of the MCP. That is the role of management from OD. So that being said, I don't technically have a network. My network is like a little removed, but is still the LCP network, because I very much help in managing the process with SONA, things like that, education, et cetera, et cetera. Several subcommittees in ISAQS. As OD, you will likely be in charge of the membership subcommittee, which is a small group of LCPs that decide which LCs reach membership, did not reach membership. I am also in charge of the legislation subcommittee. That's mostly just due to the fact that I was a previous LCP from ISAQS, so I know like how legislation here works. That was really the only reason I was given legislation. And then, so those are my subcommittees. And then the NST, these are definitely my people that I'm trying to focus on a lot this semester. Last semester, I didn't focus a lot on them because the way this role works with OD and ISAQS is that there is only one of you, and there's so much to do. And not only is there so much to do, but there's so much to do in all different categories of everything ISAQ. So everyone, like, everyone on MC has a huge JD, but with this role, you have a huge JD in a lot of different categories. So it's really, really important to be able to prioritize and make sure you are leaning on your NST and using them and working with the rest of your MC team to make sure that the initiatives you want happen. So that's just my little spiel there. Moving on about the role. So again, these are the main resources. I've tried to compile all the ones I could think of for you. The compendium, quick note, has not been updated yet to reflect changes made at our winter conference. This is mostly the membership model, which you can see in steering team output here. And our new legislation that talks about extended alert. So what happens is that a lot of RLCs are members on alert in terms of legislation, things like that. But we've never had really any specific support or strategies to help those LCs on alert. So what happens now is that LCs that do get put on extended alert have 1 month to reach the 30 combination unrealized approvals and realized EPs. They have to hit 30 within the month, like within the year. Sorry, this is a fairly scattered explanation. But basically, if LCs don't hit membership within this time period, then they must revert to expansion strategy, which means they cut all programs except OGV. They're only allowed to have a specific number of members in their LC. And they get more focused support on helping them do OGV. 6 months to achieve 30 exchanges. So that's a quick update on that. So again, I very much encourage you to look through all these. ISICUSHub.org, that is our main resource hub that Nakul just launched at this past conference. So it's very new. Excuse me. I would very highly encourage you to go through all sessions from all conference output, especially the LCP tracks and NPR, which is our National President's Retreat, which happened this past November. So those are the sessions I'd very, very much encourage you to look through. I think that is about it. Again, if you want more info or if you have questions about OD, please contact me via WhatsApp. Specific questions like, oh, what kind of companies does IGT sell to? To be honest, I could give you an answer, but it's not going to be as great as an answer as Vinny could give you, which is the MCVP IGT. So please direct all product specific questions to the product heads themselves. As far as that goes, I think I am done. Hello again. I've been talking a lot. That is about it as just like a general overview. I hope that helped. Again, I will be looking to add more slides to this. So please do revisit this. I hope this helps you. And now I'll just open it to general consultancies if anyone has any questions or such for me. Thank you. This is good talk.
Hey, I have a question, Lydia. So you said that you mostly based your OD model with Columbia. Can I ask why you decided to do that specifically?
It's less about the OD model specifically formed around Columbia. Actually, if you look at my OD model document, which is messy, so I didn't share it, it's like I literally stole Mexico's. So it's kind of like a combination of a lot of different entities in terms of what the OD model actually is. But in terms of things like implementation channels and the way we attempted to do rewards and recognitions this year, it was very much shaped around Columbia's because they were very successful. And that was a lot of where I learned how to do organizational development, because there was not really anyone to transition me exactly on what that role was here. But our OD model itself, aspects were taken from Mexico, Colombia, Germany. I consulted Brazil about organizational health indicators, which are still not fully formed just because we haven't had the time or capacity to do so, things like that. Did that answer your question? I think you're frozen. I'm going to assume it did. Excellent. Okay, Marco asked, how is the awareness, understanding, and implementation locally about 4DX? This is an interesting topic. 4DX was attempted to be, I would agree with Santi, it's very poor. It was attempted to be implemented by the last MC, but that was not received well at all for a whole host of different reasons. As far as 4DX goes, we, as an MC, knew we were making a conscious choice. Because KPIs and MOS, they're the same things as lead and lag measures. It's the same concept, it's the same thing, backwards planning, cadence of accountability, scoreboard, visual scoreboard, all those things. We don't consciously use 4DX terminology or 4DX. We don't say, hey, your SONA is your weekly cadence of accountability. It's just like a thing that people know they have to do. Local implementation of 4DX is kind of like secret, almost. It's not, we don't like shout it from the rooftops like, hey, we're using 4DX, because we did try to do that at the beginning of the term. But there was just so many other changes that we had to make the decision to focus more on implementing like OD versus implementing 4DX. So a lot of the 4DX things are like, we don't use language really a lot, like lead and lag, or like lead and lag measures, or like cadence of accountability. It's just things that are in place now that reflect 4DX, but don't like say 4DX on them. Okay, how is the tracking at local level? Are they doing it, or is it messy? It's messy. We're trying to fix that this semester. If you look on the resources page, I have the last resource is bit.ly/USLC plans. What we changed about this past Winter National Conference is that we made it a very, very intense planning conference so that we would be able to make sure LCs are planning in the correct way with strategic, operational, functional goals, you know, LC purpose, LC behaviors, things like that. So the tracking at the local level is still messy. We have, oh, I need to add one more resource to this. Oh shoot, I'm on view only. If you go OGX and numbers, this is the new OGX tracker that we are using as well. So we are implementing a lot of new kind of like trackers and things at the local level now that we will hopefully have access to. And that hopefully people, it's less so that people don't have the trackers or that we don't make the trackers for them. It's just in terms of like the implementation and people actually using it has been by far our biggest bottleneck. So we're really, really trying to kind of nip that in the bud with this new class of LCPs and VPs and say, you have to use these trackers. You have to track your members every day. You have to track your KPIs, your MOSs. You have to do backwards planning, things like that. So it is still messy. We'll see how less messy it gets within this next month and in February when the LCPs and EVs start their terms. So the answer is messy still, but hopefully not messy later. And LCP cards, you can chime in at any time too if you have any inputs on that, because I know some of you are here. All right. Any more questions? What are the main challenges you've had as MCVP OD in terms of implementation strategies? I would say a big challenge is actually aligning NSTs. As a one of our hugest implementation channels is the NST. So it's been fairly difficult to align them and make sure that they know about each other. Like for example, my LCD team this past semester didn't exactly know who their LC's OGB NST was. Like eventually, you know, they found out, but there was no like direct communication. So like the strategies are very aligned because like I know if you ask me a question about OD, the way I answer it will be the same as our VP marketing answers it. Because we are very aligned as an MC in that way, but I can't say the same about our NSTs. It's not been a problem because our NSTs have been very good, but they're not great because they're not aligned in that sense. So that has been a big challenge I see as MCPPOD, as well as me, like as one person trying to manage all of the implementation strategies. I've very much learned that I can't do it all by myself, and that the implementation strategies have to be taken on by the entire MZ if it's going to work and happen. To be committed to every single network, not just the LCPs, not just the focus program VPs, but to every single VP members, which has not been a focus for this semester. Cool. Is there any NSTs management strategies? Typically, each MCVP kind of has their own NST management strategy. I mean, the management strategy we use is team standards, weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting, one-on-ones, things like that. We kind of tracked them in our own ways last semester to give them development and lead, for example. there is no strategy for that. It's just kind of subjective to the MCVP. There's no big, like no one's managing like the NSTs. Like no one's managing how me and how the rest of my team as MCVPs are managing our NSTs. Because none of us really have capacity to do that. There's only 10 of us as on the MC here. So no, there is no like specific strategy for NST lead, etc. Following the NST NSB question, I'm curious, what is the talent pool for the OD support teams, especially for the one working with LCPs? This past semester, like as in, the first 2 quarters of my term in winter, it was not a deep pool at all, because I didn't have a lot of pipeline. I had everyone on my NST actually, I think, was not an LCP. I chose them because they were good in that whatever program I wanted them to coach for. Like, for example, I chose someone who had a lot of background in OGX and marketing, because I knew that I wouldn't want to teach them that. I wanted them to already know the product and the program so they could help the LCPs, and I could teach them how to coach LCPs. Work so well. This semester, I had a much, much bigger pipeline for my NST because all of the outgoing LCPs applied to my team, which was great. So I received a big, very big talent pool from those LCP currents. So that was really great. And those it's very difficult to work and coach an LCP if you have not been LCP. It's just difficult. It'd be like me trying to coach an MCP. I have no idea what they've been through or what they're going through. Marco, how is pipeline and middle management? Middle management is something that happen in ISAC-US, or if it happens, it doesn't happen well. This is definitely a question I would ask Nakul as well, but from my perspective from OD, not only do we not have LCs really in the tier and cluster to need middle management, but we don't really know how to manage middle management in ISAC-US as a whole, because to give you a perspective, local committee, last year they were the first LC in ISAC-US to do over 100 exchanges. The second highest LC, the second 2 highest LCs was my LC and then another LC called Appalachian, and we did 52 and 50 exchanges respectively. So there was a huge gap between the number of exchanges that the numbers 1, 2, and 3 LCs did. And like the LCs that do 50 exchanges total, like we didn't really need middle management, whereas an LC like New York City probably did. But like we as an MC, like we can't spend all this time for middle management if only one LC needs it, where the most of the other LCs did less than 20, did less than 10 exchanges. How middle management is. Like I'm sure we would have pipeline for middle management. We just don't know how to do it really. How is the R&R strategy? The R&R strategy struggled this semester because like we had a strategy of like doing it on a points-based system, things like that, and awarding money based on that. However, it really, really fell through the cracks because I didn't manage it as it was a responsibility in my JD. And it turns out I could very, very much not do that. So what's happening this semester is we learned from that mistake. I definitely have, and that our focus program, OGD, for example, they have the most R&R strategies. Like they are doing, like right now, something that was literally just launched today was that to try and really, really push IXP is that, okay, if you as like an LC member, you get approved for your IXP, you get $20 off of your conference fee. So all of our R&R is focused on making exchange happen. And we had a sales, an IGT sales campaign, for example, like a points-based one, like however many meetings you do, you get this amount of points, whatever. And like the highest performing LC or the most amount of points you get means you get 1 delegate fee for the national conference covered. That's kind of how it works. It's always driving performance. Are you doing anything in terms of virtual expansions? From an OD level, no, not at all. Because like I said, none of our LCs can even support doing more than 30 OGB as it stands right now. Or most of our LCs cannot support doing even more than 30 OGB by themselves as of right now. So no, there's really no virtual expansions in terms of allocating to LCs. what I'm doing in terms of like people who say, hey, I want to come start an expansion, is I say, okay, then go abroad first, then come back, and then hopefully my successor will have more pipeline of experienced people to start an LC wherever they are than I do. ISIC US, we were allocated Cuba as a virtual expansion market by like the Global Expansions Board, but turns out Cuba, Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube ads are all illegal. So we can't exactly do virtual marketing in a place where virtual marketing is illegal. So that happened. But no, not really. What do you do in case you get a sign up from a school where there is no physical presence? Do you assign it to the nearest LC? Typically, yes. Unless the nearest LCs are not performing or doing their job, and then we will allocate it to a different higher performing LC. Is typically what happens. Or if they're OGT and there's no LC in the area that really runs OGT, sometimes the MC will just take that. Another question from SONA information: are you making reports constantly out of that, or how are you using the information with the LCs? So that's the problem with SONA right now, is that we are not constantly making reports out of it because I did not have the capacity to do so, and I did not have an LCD team focus them on making that happen. What I wanted to change for this semester is making sure that we are making reports out of the SONA information. We also use it a lot as like an information gathering system. So like, for example, for the US LC plans, like we need to like really like drive down that this and this and this part of your plan needs to be finished by like yesterday. So what I'll do in the next SONA is I'll say, like, the first question will be, did you fill this, and this out? And the question option or the answer options will be yes, or it'll be like they have to fill out why they haven't done it. So we get more information that way. The part of planning and transition, how good is it? As far as planning goes, it's definitely seen a lot of developments in this term in terms of like really being structured in the way we expect LCs to do planning and doing things like strategic, operational, behavioral, EB planning. I would very highly recommend you look at the planning sessions from both National President's Retreat and Winter National Conference to get more of an overview of how planning. And as far as transition goes, we really tried to make sure that happened this year. It got a little jumbled in terms of like transition, co-delivery, current EBs being burnt out, not working so much. So, I mean, it can always be better is the answer to that. Speaking of plan then, how do you guys plan as an MC, i.e. how do you get your plan numbers? We base our plan numbers in our original planning off of what tier the LC was currently in and what tier we wanted them to jump to, and what tier we could expect them to jump to based on leadership pipeline, capacity, previous performance, and any kind of reality we knew about the LC. My home LC, San Luis Obispo, ran into a lot of like legal trouble in terms of like not being able to send EPs abroad because of like the legalities of the university. So we knew that our goal for them could not be as high despite them being a previous high performer because of this like thing from their reality that was literally preventing them from doing so. So what typically happens in ISIC US actually is that the MC will plan for numbers for LCs, and then that LC's goal for themselves will be higher than the number the MC has planned for them. Is something we can definitely see reflected in this year as well. The OD model, what are the health indicators? The health indicators we have right now, again, are not A, completely fully formed, B, really implemented in like ISIC US reality. They are like number of or amount of reserves an LC has in terms of monetary reserves. Oh gosh, what's it called? Member, I lost, like when a member does more exchange, oh my God, what is that called? You know, that thing. Productivity. Oh my God. Yes, membership productivity is a big one as well. NPS score we included in there. So like these are things like you need to have money. You need to have productive members. You need to have the right amount of members that are productive and doing exchange. So these are things that we don't necessarily track LCs on at the moment, which most OD models do. But they are things that have been driven down as something LCs and LCPs and EVs know that they need to make happen. So this is not necessarily driven by OD, but it's driven by the finance and TM networks, as well as LCPs are very, very much aware of like what makes an LC healthy. Are there any current bottlenecks currently in implementing the model or any other OD initiatives? No, not that I can like think of on the top of my mind, other than the fact that sometimes things don't move as fast as we need them to, like Slack, for example. LCs have been very, very receptive to OD, to having a focus program, to having focused coaching for them, to having LC visits, growth paths, things like that. As far as like from an OD initiative, we haven't really hit a lot of bottlenecks. There have been bottlenecks in other functions. For example, an OGV strategy is like for LCs in tier 1 is to work with like 1 to 2 LCs as like LCs to LC partnerships. So like having LCs form those partnerships, like that's a bottleneck. But I wouldn't exactly call that an OD bottleneck, more so as an OGV bottleneck. Can I have access to Sona? It would depend on what you want access to Sona for. Let me know, and then I can tell you if you actually need access to Sona or not. Just the form. Yeah, the form itself is in the output. Yeah, it's just bit.ly US Sona. That's the form. What are the changes that OD will have in the upcoming months? I'm focused a lot more on expansions and making OGB happen. So I have my expansions team. I'm managing the team leader is managing everyone else, things like that, helping with everything there. Focused on the LCD team, making sure that I'm following, team standards with them, et cetera, and really, really focused on making campaigns, initiatives, conferences happen. There aren't any big changes in the coming months because the big changes we've had happened this past semester with just like implementing everything. So if anything changes in the upcoming months, it'll be perfecting, adjusting, learning, and really trying to see like what works and what doesn't. Frog leaping system in place, as in any system in place to help them jump 2 or more tiers in programs or overall clusters. No. We do expect some LCs to jump 2 tiers. However, we are very focused on having them jump because as we've seen over and over again in ISIC-US, if an LC is in tier 1 and they're doing strategies that belong in tier 3, such as university relations, they're not going to go. They're just not. It's just the wrong kind of focus. And that's not what we've been implementing at all. Something that I say a lot is like, if OD is like, and tiers are like a staircase. And if you want to get to the top of the stairs, you're not just going to appear there one day. Like you have to take each step as it is. That's not just about trying to drive down, having LCs follow the growth paths, follow things like that. We do have LCs moving fairly rapidly through the tiers, but we're just focused on making them focus. It shows I need permission. I guess that is for the email. Yes, Marco, I will. I'll change that tonight so you can see that. In managing the conference cycle, did anything change in comparison to the last year? Yes. If you look at the winter steering team output, we have changed our regional conferences to have only LCPs and new / or any general member. Whereas before we had VPs attend the regional conference as well. And now our national president's retreat meeting, which typically happens in March or April, which before was only for LCPs, is now an EB conference, which we're really, really excited about. I'm very thankful to MC Rise for passing that legislation. Get to be the ones that have the very first like EB conference for ISIC-US. So that's the big change that has happened. Where an entity in the sense of achieving growth, one of it has been adjusting and like cutting the fat per se in LCs. A lot of LCs have really, really downsized because they understand now that they don't need 50 members to do 50 exchanges. You can do exchanges with 20 members, things like that. A general bottlenecks, a lot of the times in ISIC-US, as reflected in IDT or IGB, is just there's not enough intensive activity to achieve People here are very, very smart. People hear what needs to be done, but sometimes they don't always know how to do it. And sometimes it's very, very small things that are keeping people from doing an amazing job. And it's just a matter of figuring out what that small thing is sometimes. Like complicated questions have simple answers a lot of the times, is what I've come to realize with this role. Internal communication, how is it? Any specific strategy? Basically, our strategy that Audrey told me at the beginning of my term was, Lydia, the MCUS page needs at least one post a day. I would like the MC United States page. So we've been definitely really focused on that. I am not the sole responsible of internal communications anymore. You can see on the MCUS page that a lot of the internal communications comes from a lot of different networks that all of the program heads and manage themselves. As far as like specific like implementation channel internal communications, I am very much in charge of that, like the internal communication in terms of how we communicate to LCPs, like how we communicated for this is very much different than it was last year. We very much try and focus on making it not super top down, but really going in depth into explaining why this is happening, why it's good for you, and what kind of support you will receive from us in making this happen. So that's very, very important to like LCPs and understanding like what's happening. You can see members per LC user, their productivity. That's probably a better question for Nicole. I'm sure there is a place and that place will or not. Excuse me. So I would ask Nicole that question. What are the main synergies between OD and other departments? I would say everything. With OGB because it's our national focus program, and I'm like allocated to like the specific OGB project that we have that we made in our replanning slides, which you can see in the conference output. Yeah, honestly, like OD has to have something to do with everything, so I can't give you a super specific answer for that. I have time for about 2 more questions if you guys are good with that. Yeah, hashtag everything.
Hey, Lydia, I have a question. Mm-hmm. So in terms of like OD, like development strategy and everything like that, I really feel like a lot of this role is not about like creating strategy for the products, but instead of like figuring out how to implement that. Would you say yes or no, and like why?
Yeah, I would say a lot of that is yes. Like, for example, I'm not an OGB expert. I'm not an IGT expert. The people who make the strategies are the experts. I usually will help them with it, and I will feedback them, and I will make sure that it's aligned, and I will make sure that it can be done, and make sure that it's like reflective of the messages we're trying to drive, and then I will help them implement it. So OD very much is an implementation channel. The good thing with how strategies are formed from an operational standpoint in an RMC is that almost always they reflect OD. Sometimes we joke that OD is our focus program and instead of OGB. When that's very, very reflected in like how we do operations and how strategies are formed like for any program, TM, finance, back office, anything like that. So it's very, very OD centered in the first place. So I typically don't have to be like, that's not aligned, because it almost always is. And then a question from Marco. How is the members' understanding of the organization? How is the mindset of the membership currently? I would say the mindset and a members' understanding of the organization has changed a lot. We basically stole a lot of, at our regional conferences, we basically stole a lot of sessions from IC. You know, like the hot dog thing, how of ISIC, not just the why. Problem sometimes that we have is that we don't have a lot of members attend, or as enough members attending conferences. So that's actually a little bottleneck there. But the mindset of the membership currently has changed a lot from, you know, we're scared of quality cases to like, let's make this happen. Like, let's like do this. And that has very much been like the leadership of our MCP Audrey in terms of like her whole platform was disruptive innovation and really, really changing the way we do things for ISAQ-US. And I can pretty confidently say that a lot of the changes she wanted to see has already happened or is still in the process of happening. So we've gotten fairly positive feedback for our, all of our strategies, things like that. People, LCPs especially, are very more focused on like driving performance and making it happen, but still like not losing the sense of like doing it for development of EPs, members, leadership development, things like that. Hope that answered your question, Marco. Yeah, all right. Yes, awesome. Cool. Last one, go for it. Suspense. How is bottom up and top down culture engagement of the LCs? I would say it's kind of like a give and take. A lot of like sometimes we have to be like fairly top down things, like with the OD model. Like yes, we like ran it through the steering team, like they like made it like very bottom up. But sometimes a lot of things with OD still do have to be top down. It's just a question of how it's implemented. In terms of like overall bottom up, top down culture, a lot of it right now is fairly top down, but because that's what LCs kind of want. You know, like LCs want national marketing materials. They don't want to have to use their time and capacity their own. As far as like LC's creativity and innovation, like I said, like our network is really, really smart. And like once they kind of understand what's happening, they can like take it and run with it. Like for example, our expansion in San Diego, like we just gave them direction. Like we had them shut down IGT and OGT and only run OGB. And they made a bomb ass like marketing plan, like with just their like OGB and like their members, and they like did it and they got all these approvals and they made LC partnerships because they finally like understood and knew how to do it. And so they did it. And they're one of our highest growing LCs in the nation right now. They received the OGB Tier 2 award at WNC and the Expansion of the Year award. So it's like, once people understand what's up from a top-down perspective, or top-down, like bottom-up is like they go and they run with it. One last. The TLs receive any special training for their role? No, because we don't have, one, a lot of TLs, two, TLs that should be TLs. Yeah, that's pretty much it. No, they do not receive any special training. We don't have a lot of LCs that support TL or that should have TL like structures in place. Thank you for your space, Lydia. You're very welcome. I hope you enjoyed it. You can come back again tomorrow and I might have some more things for you. If not, you're amazing. Good luck, everybody. Again, please feel free to WhatsApp me. Any questions, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Bye. I'm gonna end it. Bye.